Hey guys, thanks so much for jumping in and wanting to watch this video, this interview with Yasemin. If you don't know, we met Yasemin, me and Caleb, on our vision trip to New York City. We were working on a filming project to come back and show our church about what it would be like to do ministry in New York City. And through a divine appointment, I believe we ran into Yasemin. We were lost on the subway. She was lost on the subway. That turned into about a 15-minute ordeal where we got the opportunity to kind of make a connection with her. On our subway ride, I'd previously gotten an opportunity to kind of share the gospel with her. She did not surrender in faith right then and there, but what happened was she was so intrigued about what we were doing that she canceled her plans for the rest of the day, and she wanted to be a part of this film and just kind of share from her point of view about church and God and spirituality and those sorts of things. And so this is after I already kind of took some time to share the gospel with her, and her jumping on and sharing, really for your sake, her point of view and her perspective. A couple things that I want to keep in mind. She's never been to church before, so expect the kind of language and just understandings of things that somebody that has never been to church before, that's never read the Bible before, and those sorts of things. And my prayer is that it will really enlighten your heart and motivate, inspire, convict you to be urgent with the good news and of the gospel that you have, and so many don't. But then also, I just want you to kind of keep an eye out, and we'll circle back to this at the end, of how many things she mentions that she loves or she enjoys, and how close those are related to what Jesus gives us and the hope that we have in Him. So I hope that you enjoy this time and this conversation that we have, and pray that the Lord uses it to move in your heart.
Okay. Hi, Oklahoma. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
I'm Yasemin. I'm from New York. We met on the subway with Caleb and Blake. Caleb and Blake, Pastor Blake.
Yeah.
And we were lost, but now we're here. And I've never been to church in my life. Never stepped foot. And yeah, here I am learning.
Yeah.
Being educated.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Share just a little bit. You told me just a second ago that you felt like it's possible that God made our paths cross.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Share a little bit about how we were on the subway trying to figure it out.
Okay.
And then you're here now and you feel like maybe God's up to something. You don't even have to say that. Don't say words that I make you say.
I understand, yeah.
But however you would even say that.
Okay.
Like the universe, however you would say that.
Okay, so I just left a meeting, got on the subway. First time in my life being lost on the subway, no joke. I usually know where I'm going. And lost on the subway, see Blake and Caleb. They seem also lost. And I say, where are you guys trying to go? Are you looking for the J? And we're all looking for the J. Can't find it. It takes us a good 15 minutes, I think. Finally, we find it, and just actually right as we're going on the train, you tell me you're a pastor. And that, honestly, I've never met anyone who has any sort of spiritual authority. I've never met anyone who I would say is actually religious. Maybe they have religion in their life in some way or another, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they've devoted their life to a religious way of living. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but yeah. So it piques my interest. Whenever anyone wants to talk about anything like this with me, I'm always yes, I would love to know what you think and how it's shaped you as a person and how you've gotten to the place you are now. So honestly, I didn't think you were gonna ask me. I was kind of I wish they asked me to speak about this. But yeah, and then I guess here we are, sharing our story. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell me about your kind of childhood. Give me in a little bit of an overview. If you had a minute and a half before a subway and somebody asked you, tell me about your life, right? And you just gave me a summary. Tell me about how you were raised, And
Okay.
If you want to throw any kind of religious stuff in there, like
Okay.
where you passed with religion or stuff
Okay,
like that.
okay,
And
okay.
then where you are now, what you're doing, what your career is, those sorts of things.
Okay, so I'm actually Turkish. Both of my parents are Turkish. I would say my whole life I've had like no brush with religion at all, except for maybe, and I wouldn't say this is religion, I would say it's more life advice. Whereas like when I was a kid, my mom would always say to me like, you know, like if something's in your mind, like it takes up so much space in your tiny little mind. If you were to put it in the big world, then you'd feel so much better. Like you wouldn't have to be so cramped. That's something I live by. I think that's why I like therapy. I know that's not the same, but like it kind of feels like you're like, you know, in one way or another, you're like sharing your larger thoughts that you can't fit into the small vessel, if that makes sense. I would say that's the farthest I've ever gone any sort of like religious or spiritual advice. My biggest, I guess, like brush with spirituality, or like what I think has shaped my way of seeing the world, has been through I don't know if I'm allowed to say this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say whatever you want.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We'll cut it. If you don't feel good about it, we'll
No, I can say it. I just feel bad.
Oh,
it's about
don't
drugs.
feel bad
Can I
about
say
it.
drugs?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's real life.
Okay.
filter. You just be
Okay,
who
I'm
you
glad.
are.
Okay, so one time I was probably 19 and I was roofied. And I was roofied with LSD. I had no idea what it was. I'm 18, maybe 19, freaking out, right? Like I'm like crying. I'm like, oh my God, I want this to end. Like because I didn't know what was going on. Like I thought I was just like really drunk, and I was like, this is insane. Like I want this to stop. This is crazy. And anyway, so I get home somehow. My friend takes me home. I'm like in like big distress. I'm like I don't know what to do. I feel terrible. I'm like crying, and I honestly would describe that experience as hell. Like it was the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then, still under the influence of this drug, I guess something switched in me where I was like, oh, I'm okay. Like, I'm freaking out. That's okay. Like, you know, like I'm crying. That's okay. Like, I want to throw up. Chill, throw up. Like, and I just kind of like got to this point where I was like so vulnerable, I guess, under like this influence, and like through that I felt like I literally had like gone back to like my, you know, like my purest like soul form. And I really felt like, you know, like in that, I genuinely felt like I was like being lifted by this like huge power of love. That's the way I describe it. I would describe it as like every single atom in the universe, like just like carrying me with love. Like that's the way I experienced that feeling. And I was like, okay, like this is amazing. Like I'm great, you know? And it was probably, I guess, like euphoric. I've never ever felt that feeling before. And I carry that with me. It's been like 5 years since that. And I really, like that feeling is something that I am very grateful I got to experience. And that's my own way of like feeling, I guess, one with, I would say, the universe. You guys could say God. I don't know. I would say God. I just don't know if it's like applicable in this context, you know? But I definitely do believe in, I guess, like some sort of like divine thing. I don't really believe in a man in the clouds, like, to be honest, but like I do believe in like, I'm okay. Like like everything is like in perfect order, you know? That's something I like genuinely believe in. And I think this instance is also pretty much in that perfect order, you know? I believe that very much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Okay. Tell me what experiences, if any, have you had with church? You know,
Okay.
you had told me you've never been to church.
Never
right?
been to church.
So you tell me a little bit about, you know,
My understanding
your
of
life
church.
and your understanding of church, and any encounters that you've had with it, and if anybody has invited you, or like most of the time people don't invite you, right? So, and then start with, so my background with church is, and
Okay. So my background with church is, I have never been inside of a church. I I guess I enjoy going on like long walks. I like if I'm feeling a bit like overwhelmed, I'll go on like a nice meditative walk. And on those walks, I often, because I live in New York, there are many churches around. I often will like see a church. And I'll be like, oh, like I'm just like intrigued. I'm like, what's going on in there? You know, like what do they do? Like, do they sit and sing? Do they like, I don't know, are they like, oh my God, God, yay? Like, I don't understand. Like, am I allowed to say, oh my God?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. But anyways, yeah, I'm just like, I don't really understand what happens in there. Like, the singing sounds quite nice. So my boyfriend is Church of England, I think that's what I don't like, he doesn't have like such a connection, but that's the way he was brought up. So sometimes I'll ask him some questions just because I think it's interesting and it's not something that I have in my life. And I feel like many people have this in their life, like some sort of religious outlet. And he always tells me that they used to sing a lot, which sounds quite lovely. I would like to do that. Like, why not? I could sing about whatever. I feel it, to me, the way church feels is like mass meditation. That's the way I would like describe it personally. Just because like I assume that that's the feeling, similar feeling of, I don't know, like indulging in church. That sounds really wrong.
Again, we can cut.
Like, okay, I mean, I would say it's that, but I could also say going to church. Indulging in church, that's funny. I don't know. I think also, like, I guess because I'm not religious, I don't really have too much of an understanding of, like, again, that's why I would call it indulging in church, you know? Like, I don't really, like, understand completely what would draw you to, like, live by these, like, rules. But actually, it seems like Christianity they don't really have rules, do they? It seems like they kind of have, like, stories that, like, are, like, this is, like, what could happen. Like, I don't know. I feel like it seems like, at least in the Old Testament, which is, like, the only thing that I have some sort of knowledge on, it seems like there are more rules in that than there are in, I guess, the New Testament, which I think is quite interesting. So maybe you guys don't have many rules. I don't even know. But I would say everyone has their own set of rules, you know? So, like, to have, like, a communal set of rules, that's something that's quite interesting to me. Especially as a pastor, that must be very interesting to preach those things. And I'm sure you believe them, so you're kind of preaching your own morals. Also, I guess it's so different than my life. Like, so did you have to go to, like, a pastor's school or something? Wow. Yeah? That's quite cool to, like, you know, like, go to, like, I don't know, that's cool. You, like, learn about that, Bible study and stuff. I've never had that ever in my life. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I honestly have I don't even know how to, like, I have no idea what happens in church. I know that people dress up nice. That's, like, one thing that I know. I know you're supposed to be, like, modest but nice. Yeah.
Give me some more of that. Like, what are the other impressions or thoughts that come to mind when you think about?
You're supposed to be
like, being in
proper,
church?
very proper.
Yeah.
Are men and women, like, do they sit together? Yeah.
Well, no,
At least they do it all.
There's some
Yeah.
that don't, yeah.
Okay. I picture, honestly, like, a mom who's like, come on, kids, we're going to church, you know? And then the kids are like, oh, mom, okay, you know? Oh, I see, like, Christmas. I've never done Christmas. Like, I don't do Christmas. So that's something that I'm, like, quite envious of. Like, I kind of wish I did Christmas. Just because it seems like a nice communal thing. Like Thanksgiving. But I guess spiritual. Or religious. What else do I think happens in church? I feel like there must be some sort of, like, code of conduct that people have. Do you, like, wear, like, the white thing? No?
We don't, but
No,
you
but
know,
some people do.
Priests do.
Yeah.
Oh, priests. They're different than pastors.
Like Church of England, they wear those.
Oh, okay.
Like Catholics.
Catholic churches, Episcopal churches.
Okay.
Collar.
Oh, actually, I have a godmother. She's very Christian. She's evangelical. And my parents frown upon it. So maybe that's my, you know, like, maybe I would say that's, like, one experience I have with it. but they don't really talk about religion when they do. They kind of talk about like the politics of the church, I guess, which I guess could get quite messy. But I don't really know about that either, to be completely honest. I haven't really I don't really think about it too much, to be completely honest with you. This might sound a bit silly, but like I like to journal. I feel like that probably might be like a similar like religious like spiritual practice, because I guess you're like kind of like letting it out in a way. Yeah, like yoga. I like yoga. I don't know. Like I feel bad comparing these things, but I feel like in one way or another they're similar.
This is like so much of this is so important for us to take back to our people.
Yeah, I'm sure, because
your story, to be frank with you, your story is going to blow our people's minds.
wow.
It really will. It will blow our people's minds. And
They're like, oh my God, how does she not know about church?
well, yeah, because where we're from,
Yeah.
it's just we're called the Bible Belt. I don't know if you've ever.
Oh no, I've never heard
Bible
that.
Belt. Yeah, it's like the South.
Okay.
And it's.
I've never even been.
Yeah.
around
in the
there,
South,
no.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's a Bible Belt, and we've got our own stuff. Listen, like there are so many people that are fake. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm
They go
sure.
to church
I mean,
and-
everywhere,
and
yeah.
They don't actually believe.
Yeah.
God actually hasn't affected their lives
Yeah.
in ways. They
Yeah.
just go to feel better about themselves.
Yes.
Or for social status reasons.
Yes.
All those sorts of things. So there are lost people where we're at for sure. Where we would say they don't know the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus, but they say Jesus' name all the time. Right? But have you ever heard the phrase like, God says to not use his name in vain?
Yes.
Right?
You're not
So,
supposed to say like,
GD.
Damn.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But that's a commandment. That's one of the 10 commandments that God gave in the Old Testament.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean don't say GD. Right? It means
Don't use these
my
terms.
name wrongly.
Yeah.
Because like his name, he wants to show people who he is, and when we use his name wrongly, we show people the opposite, right?
You know what? I think one thing about like I guess this idea of God through Christianity is that kind of confuses me is that I don't think I would really believe in a man. Like I feel like my God would be like not a man. You know what I mean? Like I don't think she'd be a woman, but I don't think she'd be a man either. I think it would just be like a thing. Like yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is like, so like you said earlier, God made man and woman.
Yeah,
She didn't
yeah.
just make man. So like,
So
God,
yeah.
we refer to him as he because that's what the Bible refers to him as. But God isn't male. Like he's not actually just like he's not a human being who's in the sky. I mean, Jesus is a human being.
Yes, Jesus is a
But
human
that's
being.
because God, this whole super confusing thing, God like came down to earth to become one with humanity so that we
Okay.
could know him truly. And so like, we're not worshiping like
A man, yeah.
We're worshiping the God who created male and female. Both of them.
So is
reflect-
God like androgynous?
I don't even know what that means.
Like just like a being that's not necessarily a man or a woman.
I don't know if I mean you could probably say that, but it's hard for us to use terms to describe God because it's so outside of our like understanding.
I see,
you
I
know?
see.
And so
Okay.
it's hard for us. And so that's why like we wouldn't say he's a male, but they still use like
He.
terms. And
I see.
And sometimes they refer to him as like there's places in the Bible that say like it's like a mother like protecting her children or whatever. And so it's like there's
Use illustrations of God,
Okay.
but like
Yeah.
mothering, people
Okay.
underneath.
Actually, I think like when I think of like this safe, secure, beautiful feeling, I do think of like being coddled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe by your mom.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And like
Way more my mom than my dad, to be honest. Yeah.
And like we believe, and this is super unpopular, so it's totally fine if you don't believe this or whatever. But like we really do believe that God gave there are two genders. There is male and there is female. And
This is not. I don't want to say that's a very unpopular thought.
well, for us, it feels like it might be in a
No,
culture
no.
like that.
I wouldn't think so.
Well, I just didn't want it to come off rude.
No,
right?
no. I
Right?
understand.
So, but we believe that there's two
Yeah.
genders, there are male and female, and that's exactly how God created.
Do you
them.
guys think it's okay to be gay?
So no.
Okay.
Again, and it goes back to how God created us.
It's about like having kids.
It's yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. But when God created us, it says He created us in His image. So the very first the very first conviction that you've got to have before you go to like my beliefs are this, this, and this on something is, if you're a Christian, is like that we are not ours, that we are God's.
I understand.
Right? Like God made us.
I
He made
understand.
us for His purpose. And so when I believe that, I go back to how He created us. And what it says, and it makes so much sense to people once they come to the realization of it, that He made us male and female. And it's because I just preached a wedding this weekend, and part of the wedding was this. I was like, Carson, he was the guy, and Allie. I was like, Carson, God made you, but He made you this particular way, and you're not good enough on your own to reflect the image of God. And Allie, He made you this way, and you're not good enough on your own to reflect the image of God. It's when the two become one flesh, right? You ever heard that? The man and the woman become
Like
one
sex?
flesh. Well,
Like, so sex is holy?
oh, for sure,
Okay.
in the Bible, no doubt. But the two become one, like the one married couple. They make a covenant together.
I see. Like, marriage is the union.
Exactly.
I
It's
see.
the union. And when those
My
two
parents
things come
aren't married.
together-
Have never been married.
They really
They've
are.
been dating for 40 years.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Never married.
So when the two become one, though, it's this beautiful union, or covenant is the word that the
Covenant.
Bible uses. Covenant together. It's not a contract. It's not you do this, I'll do this.
Yeah.
But it's a covenant commitment between two people. And when they do that, the maleness and the femaleness come together, and it actually can reflect maybe the full image of God, right?
I see.
And so then there are offspring of that. And the first command in the Bible
Is to have kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You knew that.
I
Yeah.
thought about that. I
Yeah.
feel like that makes
It's-
sense. Yeah.
It's He created them, and He said, "Be fruitful and multiply."
Okay.
And so
Oh yes, I
here-
did know that. I've
Yeah,
heard that before. Yeah.
There you go. You're like, ding.
Yeah.
You know.
So do you have to be married to have kids?
So
It's like what my parents did,
that
like
would
a
be-
sin?
That would be the moral. That would be the moral of the Bible. Of
Okay.
The Bible. The Bible would say yes, that the act of sex and the act of offspring and all that kind of stuff should be within the confines of the covenant. That one man makes with one woman. But again, let me take you quickly back to Jesus. Why did Jesus come? To save us of our sins. Right?
I see. So you can like
so you're not condemned because you may be having sex with your boyfriend, or because your parents are condemned because they've been having sex and they haven't been married.
Yeah.
But they have kids. It's not condemned if you come to Christ. And in fact, in Romans,
Do you guys have like confession?
no.
Not in the way that you're probably thinking.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're probably thinking of that more in the Catholic.
I'm thinking of like sitting in a room and being like, "Forgive me, Father.
Yeah, no,
I've
right,
sinned."
no.
Yeah.
But through Jesus, Romans 8:1 tells us that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. So if you come to Jesus, there's no condemnation for our sin. So the fact that the reality is that when we give over our lives to Jesus, He actually gets to give us a clean slate, and we're not condemned of our sins that we've committed in the past. But we're also not condemned for the sins that we cause in the future, because we're not saved by how good we are. We're saved by how good Jesus is, right?
That makes sense.
And so because of what He did, we can be saved. Now I say, because Jesus loved me so much, I want to give my life to Him. And I
Okay.
want to follow Him in His direction. And I want to go and tell Yasemin
Yeah.
about Him, because I believe this is the way to everlasting life.
That's really nice. I feel like this is really sweet. Props to you guys. Like, this is really nice. You traveled across the country. Well, not really, but kind of. To share this message. That's very nice.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
think
Well,
that's
and-
very
and
beautiful.
We're only doing it because we feel like that's
You
what God's
actually,
told us
yeah,
to do.
totally. That's really, really nice.
What other questions do you think we should ask for the purposes of this?
I don't know. I missed most of what you said at the beginning because I was wondering.
Yeah. So, talk to me about. Tell me, and I think this will be the last maybe couple. Talk to me about what would.
It's all good.
Sorry.
And you already shared some of this with me, but you kind of shared again. What would it be like for you if somebody nice invited you to church, right, and say,
Oh, I go.
yeah, so just start.
Okay.
So for this, and I'm going to be quiet, let you go. And so, how should she start that? So
If I were invited
so
to church.
one of the crazy things I'm understanding is that I've really not been invited to church that much, or?
Well, so every time I have been invited to church, the reason why I haven't gone, I also don't have any religious friends to be, like no one's like gonna, like the only reason why someone would invite me to church is to be like, oh, you should see it, None of my friends actually go to church. Like I don't have one single friend who will like go to church and, like be a part of mass or service, yeah. So because I don't have that, I don't know why they would invite me, if that makes sense, because there's really no one to invite me. And so when my godmother has invited me, the reason why I haven't gone is because I feel as if it would be voyeuristic, where I'm like, I guess like observing this thing that's sacred to these people, and I'm just kind of like it feels a bit rude, to like go and like, I don't know, like I definitely don't judge it at all. I just wouldn't want to sit there and be like, what's going on? Because like, like all these people are so into it, and like, I don't want to take that away from anyone. I know I wouldn't, but like, I wouldn't want to feel that way. Because I feel like if someone came to something that I see to be sacred and they were like, what's this? I'd be like, well, like this is my sacred thing. Like, I don't know, don't judge it, I would say that. I would say about like the church invite thing, like, again, like, I don't really know anyone who goes to church. I'm like really trying to think about it. I don't know anyone who goes to like synagogue or church or mosque or anything. Like, I don't know anyone who's like actually very in Taiwan. I've never heard anyone say to me like, follow God, like no one's ever meant that to me. Like, I don't know, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like, I really think like, it's not really like a concern, like, because I also think everyone has their own set of morals, and like in New York especially, because it's a very individual place. So I think people connect to their own morals, they have their own rituals, they have their own things, like I do, like I like journaling or whatever it may be, meditation or like walks or whatever makes you feel good, right? Like we all have our own things, and I think church just isn't a part of that, like I really don't know.
Yeah, that's great.
I think that's good.
Yeah?
I think that's good.
Cool.
So did you catch some of those things that she said? How about how she likes to, whenever she's stressed, go on long walks and meditate? Man, how close is that to our prayer hope that we have in Jesus? Did you hear her talk about how having a community and a communal list of kind of rules, is how she said it, and how that sounds great to her, or singing, how lovely that sounds, singing with one another about something that you believe. This sense of community that she is longing for, that I think we find in the church. And then also, how about that moment when she admitted she was under the influence of this drug and she felt like she was in hell? And that's the best way that she could kind of put to words on this. But how about while I was in my darkest time, and she is admitting that this was a huge spiritual moment for her. While she was in her darkest time, she felt like something came to her in her darkest place and lifted her up with love. I don't know about you, but I see Jesus working and moving in all of these ways. But how can somebody like her come to the knowledge of Jesus Christ if she has never heard the good news? I pray that this has been used in such a way that motivates and convicts your hearts to be urgent with the good news that you have and so many need to know.